حبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك كن سموحا لخصمك تلقى خصمك أحبك بيض الله قلبك بيض الله قلبك واحتفل بالمودة إنما
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome to the Sulaimaan Ravat show. Now, our apologies for the delayed start. We're coming to you live from our studios in Sunning Hill, Johannesburg this Friday evening. The final Friday in November. We go into December from tomorrow, the final month of the year. Many people will be relieved. Many people are looking forward to very exciting things during the December holidays. But for now, the work continues. The program continues as well. The delayed start was due to technical issues, and we really apologize for that. The topic you may have seen, it's been advertised, is the media under attack in South Africa. Is the media under attack in South Africa? That's the topic of discussion. We know we've been having this whole issue of Julius Malema and his attacks on the journalist and the kind of concerns that have been raised by SANAF and others in terms of where this is going and the consequences and the implications of it. Now, our guest this evening on the line with us is Denzel Taylor. Just to tell you a little bit more about Denzel, who's one of the more renowned journalists in South Africa, one of the leading journalists in our country. He started his career as a political reporter in the 90s for the SABC. It was a very interesting time, the 90s. He was there during Codesa. Then he moved on and he moved up in the SABC. He then went to government. He was spokesperson for Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo Nguka. He was spokesperson for Deputy President Baleka Mbete at the time. And he's currently with Power FM. And he's going to be our guest this evening discussing this issue, is the media under attack in South Africa. Denzel, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the program. Apologies for the late start.
Good evening and thank you very much.
Well, if we get straight into the topic, in your opinion, is the media under attack in South Africa?
It's an interesting question, and you know, being a media person myself, I've had to, of course, follow what's happening in the news and in the industry just as much as obviously you are, because that's why you're asking the question. And you know, there's a popular view that, of course, we're under attack, and there's the unpopular view that, you know, why shouldn't we be under attack? And that's the question too. You know, are we in a space where we are suggesting that we shouldn't be under attack? You know, is the question I would say is, are there reasons out there that suggest that in the journalistic space, in the media space, we have all of our boxes ticked, that we bring the right things, that we bring those things called balance and fairness and being critical, and I don't know. So for me, it's a question of, obviously, yes, we are under attack, and again I would say this: which media in any country is not under attack, pending the degree of that attack. But for me, the more important question would be, if we want to analyze ourselves, is why shouldn't we be under attack?
Perhaps we need to make a bit of a distinction between a critique and criticism of the media and attack on the media. How would you distinguish between the two?
Well, I didn't hear the first part of that, but I understood the distinction on the attack. Just repeat that for me.
Yeah, I'm saying that how different is critique and criticism of the media to an attack on the media?
There is a huge difference, of course, and criticism is fair. You know, if one is in the media space or in any industry, criticism is fair because that's how we progress. An attack on the media, of course, comes at you in different ways. You know, because obviously in an election, for example, which we're heading into, there would be a purpose for that attack. If a smaller political parties would not attack because of what you are reporting, because you are not reporting.
Now, if we look specifically, Denzel, at the EFF and in particular Julius Malema, Floyd Shivambu, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, what are the elements of their behavior that now constitutes an attack on the media? Denzel, are you still there?
I think he's gone.
Oh, we seem to have lost Denzel. Let's take a commercial break and we come back and continue, inshallah.
جميل المساعي وامنح الناس حبا جميل المساعي وامنح الناس حبا.
Welcome back. So this evening we are talking about whether the media in South Africa is under attack. And our guest is Denzel Taylor, a well-known journalist in the country. He's with Power FM. He's with us on the line, and unfortunately we've had some technical glitches this evening on the program. But let's try again. Denzel, can you hear me now? Welcome back.
I can hear you, and I'm not sure what happened, but I can hear you now.
All right, so the question I was asking before we took the break or before we lost you was that when we look at the behavior of the EFF recently, and in particular that of Julius Malema and Floyd Shivambu, which actions in specific would we say constitute an attack on the media?
You know, and I have to say that let's argue that there is an attack there, because you know when whoever it is begins to suggest that you know or put you in harm's way, or suggest that you know a community should begin to deal with you, put you in harm's way, put your details out in media spaces, and I'm not suggesting that they have, but what I'm saying is I have seen this over time, and journalists have said that their details and their addresses and their family pictures and all sorts of things have begun to emerge on social media. That obviously puts that person at risk. And that would constitute, of course, an attack. You know, throwing a person out of a press conference is a form of an attack, because it's a form of abuse. So that's too. But I want to suggest this too, and it's the suggestion of how I started this debate. Is our house in order? And let me use the example that you used, the VBS story. I was looking at a newspaper again today and suggesting that against Floyd Shivambu is the front page of that newspaper, and money flowed into his rental property like this, the pay for his account like that. Now, I'm asking you this. Is the VBS story, without taking away anything from anybody and the stories they have to cover, is the VBS story 90% of it about the EFF, Julius Malema, and Floyd Shivambu? It really, really is not. But that's the narrative that is emerging in most of the newspapers, in most of the articles that are written, in most of the commentary. And yes, let's write about it. And I want to argue that strongly. Let's just write about it. Let's expose it if it's wrong. If money was transferred into a bank account that it shouldn't have, let's expose that. But let's also, in all fairness, in the 90% that we are not writing about, let's understand why we are not doing that. Is it because we as journalists or industry people or media organizations don't have the capacity to do that and we've run after the easy subject? Or is it just a narrative that we just want to follow? This story, unfortunately, is now about Floyd Shivambu, either his brother and Julius Malema. And you can go to every single newspaper and look at every single media house's coverage of this. And 90% of their coverage of the VBS story has been around those three individuals, and money was transferred into those accounts. Now, I'm not arguing their point, and I'm not arguing for them. I want to say this. The VBS story is not merely about the EFF. It's about people up in the north, about bank accounts, about how a bank was robbed, how this country allowed a bank to be destroyed, and what the consequences of that should be. But it's not about three individuals.
Talking about the relationship between the EFF in the media, Max du Preez he's received some criticism for voicing his opinion in an op-ed on News 24, saying that the media gave Julius Malema in particular and the EFF in general an easy ride for too long because Jacob Zuma was the common enemy. They were not scrutinizing enough of his statements. They gave the EFF disproportionate coverage. They seem to have forgotten that there was a public protector's report against Malema and that he lived a lifestyle that was not in sync with his income. Do you think with hindsight the media needs to look at that and certain acknowledgements need to be made in that regard?
He's off and on. He's gone again.
Denzel, are you there? All right, technical difficulties again. All right, we are running behind schedule because we started later. So let's take the next commercial break as we try and get Denzel back on the line.
جميل المساعي وامنح الناس حب جميل المساعي وامنح الناس حب.
Welcome back. Unfortunately, we having many technical glitches this evening. We had Denzel back on the line and we lost him. We'll try one more time to get him back on the line. And if we can't, we'll just have to leave it at that. I'm also going to just ask my colleagues in the studio. There's big feedback in the earpiece, so I kind of if that can be sorted out, then perhaps we can have, yeah, okay, that's much better. Right, so the discussion we were having this evening was about whether the media is under attack in South Africa or not. And Denzel Taylor is one of the leading journalists in the country, and he was talking to us about this particular situation and whether, you know, we should be saying the media is under attack, or whether we should be saying why shouldn't the media be under attack. So those are the kind of discussions that we were having this evening. Unfortunately, Denzel was supposed to be in studio, and then at a late moment something came up and he couldn't make it. So then he said he'll come on the line, and we thought, okay, fine, he'll come on the line and we'll do it that way. But now we're having you know, some difficulties with him on the line. Or with the lines rather, and therefore we cannot have that discussion. So I think we're going to have to unfortunately leave it there when it comes to Denzel. But I can't even open the lines and take comment or feedback from the viewers on the topic, because there are some technical issues and it needs to be resolved, and it's going to take some time. Maybe we can change tact and we can talk about something else. I was talking this morning about this whole corporal punishment issue. We know that there's been a case before the Constitutional Court this week about whether corporal punishment should be outlawed, whether it should be banned in the home. And they were, you know, the history behind this, just to put into perspective for those who may not have been following the news all that closely, the history behind this was simply this, that we know that the corporal punishment in terms of schools, corporal punishment when it came to students, and corporal punishment in public spaces, that has been banned and outlawed quite some time ago. But within the home, it wasn't technically illegal. There was this term called reasonable chastisement, meaning that if you moderately or mildly use corporal punishment to discipline your children, if it fell within the category of reasonable chastisement, then that would be fine, and that would not be illegal. But then you've had parents who've overdone it, and one such case landed before the High Court, and then they then said, well, no, we need to make it illegal. You're not allowed. There's no such thing as reasonable chastisement, no corporal punishment in the home. But then Freedom of Religion, I think it's a group, they took it to the Constitutional Court on appeal, saying that our religious text allows us to use corporal punishment as a form of discipline, and the state cannot impose on us to say that, you know what, you must interpret your religious text in a particular way. And it wasn't illegal, why make it illegal? It can be regulated if people go beyond the boundaries, and those people can be dealt with. And you know, it brings into focus this whole discussion about corporal punishment from an Islamic perspective. Let me say this: corporal punishment to a certain extent is permissible, but not necessarily compulsory. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not use corporal punishment. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's akhlaq and character was such that he did not need to use corporal punishment. He had another way of coaxing people and encouraging people and convincing people. However, there are hadith that talk about corporal punishment. For example, tell your children to perform the salah at the age of 7. And by the time they reach the age of 10, if they start performing salah, they're not becoming regular with it, then use the stick, because salah is such an important thing to bring them into line. But now the usage of the stick, or corporal punishment, as we call it, there are parameters, right? You cannot hit on the face, you cannot hit in a way that causes bodily harm, you cannot be leaving marks Also, one thing very important that people don't understand, you cannot hit because your own ego is bruised or because you have been angered. You have to hit with the intention of discipline. Many times, what we don't realize is we're actually hitting because we now are angry over something. And we're hitting to pacify our anger, or corporal punishment to pacify anger. And that's not right. You need to actually calm yourself and then institute corporal punishment for the sole purpose of discipline, not so that it's a reaction to the anger that you feel you need to vent. This is something that is critical. This is something that it's important that we keep that in mind. So, in a nutshell, from an Islamic perspective, corporal punishment is permissible within those parameters, but not necessarily compulsory. If you don't hit your children, but you find other ways of disciplining them, it's fine. The practical question that we ask, and we have to ask, is that how easy is it to discipline children, whether it be in school or whether it be in the home, without using corporal punishment, or at least the threat of corporal punishment? I know one teacher said that, I just keep a stick in my class, and now and then I just hit it on the table. But just the mere presence of the stick is helpful. I haven't really hit anybody. But that also can become problematic. That very teacher was in a dilemma because another teacher one day took the stick and meted out corporal punishment against another student, and the parents came and they were making threats of going to the police and that kind of thing. So it's before the Constitutional Court. They've reserved judgment until next year. They may come out and say, well, even within the home it's illegal. How will that be policed is a different matter. Those children who do report it, those instances that get reported, that's the way freedom of religion says it's too drastic. I mean, how do you define corporal punishment? If you hit your child, if a tap on the hand or a twisting of the ear or a slap on the behind, and somebody reports you, let's say that you have a quarrel with your domestic, you fire the domestic goes and reports you that you spank your children. And children are innocent when they are asked to say, yeah, dad gives me a shot or two now and then. All of a sudden you charge to have a criminal record for life. Those very children may suffer the consequences of their parents getting charged. So these are the kind of things. Now, the legalities will play out. I don't think there's too much we can do about it now. The Constitutional Court has heard the arguments. They have reserved judgment. They will make judgment. Once they pass the law, I don't think there's anything else you can do because that's the apex court. That's the highest court in the land. That's the highest that you can go. Sometimes they tend to go a little bit in between. But, I think we all would opine because many of us would say, we grew up, many people would say, we grew up with corporal punishment. We were not the worst for it. We were the better for it. Our parents spanked us from time to time, but we learned lessons and we learned discipline. There was, in our history, and I've spoken about this previously, there was that corporal punishment that was totally unacceptable. Whether it took place in the madrasa, whether it took place in the hifz class, or in the darul or in the school, or in the home, where children were beaten savagely, where children were beaten in a way that it was meant to humiliate them. It was meant to disgrace them. That was totally wrong. Out of the parameters of the Sharia. Even if scholars were doing it, wrong is wrong. We can say that the intention was right, but the action was still wrong. Also, we mustn't say that, sometimes when people talk about beatings, they tend to think it only happened in Darul Ulooms or in hifz classes or in madrasas. It happened in schools. In schools, non-Muslim teachers would six of the best and those kind of things, and hitting the children in the assembly and smacking them around. Those things happen in schools. It happened in homes. It happened by non-Muslims. It was kind of accepted until not very long ago. And there were excesses, and that's why it had to be regulated. And that's why sometimes certain things should be permissible, but when you overdo it, then it gets regulated, and then they go to the other extreme. Somebody sent me a message when I was talking about this morning. They said, when government stepped in to correct parents about how to correct their children, that is when everything became incorrect. So, the middle path is what we look for. I always say that even from an Islamic perspective, the way I understand it is corporal punishment is not the norm, it's an exception. You do it only when you absolutely have to do it. You do it as a last resort. It should not be that you're spanking every second day. And that's, I think, where teachers lost the plot at one stage, where, hiding became a routine and children became immune to it, students became immune to it. It was like, okay, I'm just going to get hiding for the sake of getting hiding. There's no due process here, whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong, I just got to get it. The teacher's frustrated, I got to get it. The teacher's had a bad day, I got to get it. My mother's having a bad day, I'm going to get it. So there wasn't, corporal punishment was not then, it was not effective in teaching a lesson or instilling discipline. It was just about stopping something temporarily, or showing your frustration or venting your anger, and obviously that defeats the purpose. So where there were excesses, and it is to be condemned as wrong, and where there is excesses or will be excesses, to be condemned as wrong. But I just wonder, how easy is it practically to discipline children, especially in today's time and age, where children are so emboldened? How easy is it to discipline them or to keep them disciplined without corporal punishment or without the threat of corporal punishment? Corporal punishment within reasonable bounds and within the parameters of the Sharia. Let's take our final break, and thereafter we continue, inshallah. All right, welcome back. Our apologies once again due to technical difficulties and technical challenges this evening. We could not proceed fully with that interview with Denzel Taylor on the line. He is a renowned journalist with Power FM, and the topic of discussion was supposed to be, is the media under attack in South Africa? Perhaps we'll do it at a later stage. Anyway, now we were talking before the break about corporal punishment, because that's the story that's before the Constitutional Court, and they have reserved judgment. Another thing that I think is important for us to keep in mind at this time of the year, we're going to dedicate an entire program to it next week, where we're going to be talking about holidays and understanding holidays from an Islamic perspective, and what tips we can give in terms of how you should go about doing your holidays in an Islamic way or in a Sharia compliant way. So I'm not going to talk too much about those concepts, because next week's program, inshallah, will focus extensively on that. But there's one point related to holidays that I want to bring to the fore tonight, because it's kind of already started, and that is having a plan for your children during the holidays. The schools have not formally or officially closed yet, but we know that children are done with exams and they're already at home. And what I find many times in the holidays, children have so much of time at their disposal, they don't know what to do with it, and their parents don't know what to get them to do with it. So they either spend too much of time with gadgets, the PlayStation and iPhone and tablet and Xbox and whatever else, or too much of unsupervised, unhealthy time with their friends, not doing the best of things. And parents have their work, right? So the mother's got her work, the father's got his work, and you sometimes we tend to just give them what they want, so that they get out of our way. Oh, okay, here's the PlayStation controls. I'm going out with my friends, go. But we're not asking where, when, how, why, with who you're going, for what you're going, where can I contact you, how do I know you're there, what you're going to do there. And these are important things. So you need to have a plan. You need to have a timetable for your children during the holidays. Now, it may sound boring. It may sound like really this is heavy. They just came out of a full school year. They don't have to be doing heavy things. When I say timetable, it doesn't mean they're going to be occupied every half hour like they're going to be in school. You allow them extra time to sleep, no problem. Allow them leisure time to go out and play with their friends. But there must be balance. They can't all the time be with the gadgets. They can't all the time be out of the house. So sometime with the gadgets, it's the era that we live in, but not till 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Then they don't wake up for Fajr Salah. Salah is non-negotiable, and they need to spend a little bit extra time on their Salah now that they got so much more time. They don't have to be spending the bulk of the time doing spiritual things, but in that plan, make sure that they're spending adequate amount of time around Salah, that they're performing Salah in congregation, that there's some time dedicated in the morning for recitation of the Quran, some time dedicated in the evening for ta'aleem, for some religious discourse, and give them a book or 2 or 3, even if it's not a religious book per se, to read. So they must be doing constructive things. Not heavy. You're not going to tell them to hit the books. You're not going to tell them to study. These are their holidays. They can sleep for a little longer. They can play with their friends for a little longer. They can play every day with their friends. They can play every day with the gadgets. There's no restrictions in that regard in as far as holidays are concerned, but not, too much of exposure to those games on the PlayStation also is not healthy. You must know where they are with their friends, and there are certain things which they have to do, right? Get them also to do constructive work around the home. Let them help out at meal times. Let them clean up after themselves. Let them help up a little bit in the business. Let them help the father clean out the garage or mow the lawn. So let there be a balance, a variety of activities. Don't overburden them. Every day you must go help your father in the shop, whole holidays. Then that also becomes, problematic. At the same time, read Quran for 2 hours every day, or read books the whole day. No, draw it up in such a way that there's a balance. 15-20 minutes a day for reading of Quran. Towards the evening, maybe something spiritual, again, ta'aleem. Salah must be there, and salah must be performed properly and thoroughly and with the proper concentration and time given to it, because there's no rush in the holidays. Read some books, constructive, give them, over a whole month I want you to read 2 books or whatever the case may be, and every day just follow up with them, have some discussion, help with some chores of the home, and then have your fun as well. And if you have a plan, it'll make it easier for you, it'll make it more constructive for your children, it'll teach them that holidays is not about just being free or just being lazy. Yes, you relax, but in a constructive way. And when we come to our own holidays later in the month, then we must do something similar. But as I said, in that regard, in terms of holidays in general, I'm going to be dedicating the entire program next week to that. And then the following week, from the following week onwards, we're going to be doing our holiday profile series, where we're going to be profiling personalities in the Muslim community and getting to learn more about their life stories and getting to learn more about who they are and what they do and the persona behind the persona, meaning you may know the person in terms of their public role, but who are they behind the scenes, what is their history, where they come from, what do we know about them, or what should we know about them, etc. And that will take us into the new year, inshallah. Right, so as we wrap for this evening, our apologies once again for the technical glitches, especially for those who were calling in to or were watching in wanting to see or wanting to listen to the discussion or watch the discussion about where the media in South Africa are under attack. But these things happen from time to time, problems with the lines. Our apologies to Denzel Taylor also if he's watching, or we will obviously apologize, and we have already apologized to him and to the viewers. But inshallah next week, no hitches, inshallah, no glitches. We're talking about the Islamic perspective on holidays and how to do your holidays in a way which is within the parameters of the Sharia. So that's next week's program. The 14th of December will also be live, but we'll start the profile series, and then between the 14th and schools opening, there'll be pre-recorded programs, but continuing with that profile series. We did it last year as well, and it was very well received during the holiday period. That's it for this evening's program. Until next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.